moving right along with the rest of the show and into our second topic, more on the Dallas Cowboys, a very fan favorite topic here on the show, and one of the popular ones as well on that. This time, talking about the whole situation with the Cowboys. No contract extensions, nothing like that. More focusing in on the head coach, Mike McCarthy, and his feelings towards Jerry Jones. We're heading into a period now in training camp where you'd like to have most of your team complete. You'd like to have a good idea of who you can count on, who potentially is coming in, what new players you have to get integrated into the system. But with the Dallas Cowboys, not really much of that. No real players coming in. The contract situations, they are what they are. Are they going to happen soon? Are they not going to happen soon? The Cowboys haven't given any inclination of that being the case anytime soon. So now to focus on Mike McCarthy and what he has to sort of deal with now because of this entire circus going on around him, for a lack of a better term. Big picture, this is Mike McCarthy's last year of his deal with the Dallas Cowboys. And after last year's playoff loss to the 49ers, to the Green Bay Packers at home, I personally thought he was going to get fired. It was too much of the same thing, too many playoff failures, too much of the Cowboys having a great regular season and then just not getting the job done. I probably would have fired him just to get a reaction out of this team, but Dallas made it pretty evident very quickly that they were going to keep him. They clarified that right after the loss. It wasn't too long after that Jones said that they were going to keep him. And now you're starting to get a little bit of more of these rumblings that some people believe that he's entering this year as a lame duck head coach. Why is that the case? Why do people feel like that? Because of that lack of action that I mentioned before, the lack of signings, the lack of getting all your business handled with the contract negotiations, maybe making some trades. They lost a lot of people, and they didn't really, again, replace all the pieces that they lost in Tyron Smith, in Tyler Biadasz, in Dorrance Armstrong. All these guys that were pretty much starters for them, they, one, didn't replace them, and also they have the three main pieces of their team in CeeDee, Dak, and Micah. While Micah's contract negotiations aren't really up, CeeDee and Dak are the ones that are on an expiring deal, and you really haven't seen anything, any more updates on that point. And Mike McCarthy is now dealing with a lot of uncertainty with this roster, not really giving him a lot of opportunity to succeed in his final year, almost just sentencing him to a bad year, getting criticized all over every week in and week out because the Cowboys are just, in my opinion, not built enough to try and get another run at this season for another run at the NFC Championship. But because of the lack of action, because of this, it's not really sitting too well, according to reports with Mike McCarthy. And also with all the departures as well, you're left with this roster where it's a lot of uncertainty at this point, and that's the last thing you want when you're on an expiring deal. You want to prove yourself, ideally, right? If you're Mike McCarthy, they're giving you another shot. Maybe in reality, potentially in his inner thoughts, he could have been thinking, yeah, maybe they're going to fire me, but he's given this second chance. He wants to go out there and prove himself, and the team's just not doing anything to really help him out. So leaving him out dry, in a sense, in another way of saying it. And now you get these other sort of rumblings from Tyler Dunn of the Go Long column, when he said he spoke with a couple of Cowboys sources who addressed Mike McCarthy's approach heading into 2024. And one of the comments from one of these sources on Mike McCarthy's contract, like I just mentioned, was at least give him a 1-year extension. You may not have to give him another 5 years, but at least extend them out 1 year and extend all the other coaches 1 year to give them a level of security. From that standpoint, just on that statement, I could sort of understand where he's coming from, just from a fairness standpoint, because, again, it doesn't seem fair. You want to give Mike McCarthy the best opportunity from just a moral standpoint, right, of being, I guess, a good person, but extending him 1 year, I just finished saying I would fire him, so I probably wouldn't have done that to avoid this whole give and take. I'm on your side, I'm not on your side. I say I'm on your side, but my actions don't show it. I would have just fired him. Realistically, just plain and simple, I would have moved on from him and brought in a new voice to try and get the troops rallied here. With Mike McCarthy staying in, again, not to say that he's incapable completely of changing the situation, but at the same time, how much more can you really change with the same players hearing the same message? And then Dan Quinn also moved on. He is the head coach now of the Washington Commanders. That defense is going to look different. You bring in a new voice, but is it going to be enough time to change everything and make it look good, again, on Mike McCarthy's final year? All these actions don't really line up with the timeline of Mike McCarthy trying to get the best results as soon as possible to just save his job. It seems like the Cowboys are planning long-term without him, and if they were going to do that, again, why not just fire the guy and just have a new voice in there and just move on from this rather than having all this back and forth, all these distractions outside of just playing football? But Tyler Dunne continued to speak on Mike McCarthy's feelings that he feels that Jerry Jones is sort of undermining him with a no-win situation this year. And Tyler Dunne specifically said, McCarthy's doing it the best he can. Some of the people I've talked to have said that he's getting fed up with it a little bit. And that's, as to be expected, honestly. If you're Mike McCarthy, you're trying to get everything right. You're trying to get all your ducks aligned. It took until mandatory minicamp for Micah Parsons to get there. Again, he didn't have to be there, but I just feel like Mike McCarthy now is starting to feel a little bit of pressure, trying to save his job, trying to get everybody in there to sort of get this message out there that, guys, we have to come in here. We have to get this season right. Not just all solely on him to just save his job, but because he feels the pressure. He obviously wants to get this team back into winning ways, but it isn't just lining up. It almost seems like the rest of the organization is on a different page. They're on a different sort of planet right now and what their goals are with this year, with the lack of activity, and with so much uncertainty, with so many different, vantage points and points of view on this whole situation. You have Mike McCarthy trying to be a little bit more intense about everything. Then you have Jerry Jones, the whole organization not really being too incentivized to go out there and try to get all these pieces. Again, the salary cap is a major issue. Of course, I know that is a major hurdle in trying to bring people in if you just don't have the room to do it. But again, that's their fault. That's their fault for not extending Dak earlier. That's their fault for waiting until the last possible minute to extend CeeDee, Dak, and now you have Micah Parsons coming down the line as well. You can sort of feel bad for them, but at the same time, you sort of lay in the bed that you set. I hope I said that right. I hope I said that saying right. You lay in the bed that you made. That sounds better. You lay in the bed that you made, essentially, is what I'm trying to say with the Dallas Cowboys. And when will we potentially see a tipping point, right? Because now it seems like the tensions are starting to boil a little bit. You're starting to see a little bit of animosity just within from the Dallas Cowboys sources. When could we see a potential tipping point in this whole situation? Because I feel like it's only a matter of time. If they head into 2024, they still haven't re-signed anybody. Maybe one of the stars hold out. Maybe, I don't think Dak will hold out, but maybe CeeDee Lamb holds out of training camp. Then you have to deal with all of that for the next few months. Then during the season, you have guys on different pages. You have the offense not really looking well. If everyone's not up to speed on the offense, the defense, like I mentioned, looks different. And maybe you're not performing as dominantly as you would. There's going to be some rough moments, I feel, in this regular season compared to other regular seasons where we've seen the Cowboys just steamroll everybody, finish first in the NFC East, get a high seed, and then still lose. I feel like this year it's going to be a little different. There's going to be some more bad results in there. Just based on the actions that we've seen from them getting nobody really in free agency. They brought back Zeke. They brought in Eric Hendricks. But really, that's not going to do it. That's not going to move the needle, especially when you have the Eagles going out and getting Saquon, re-signing all their players so they don't have to worry about that anymore. The Commanders got a lot better. I liked what they did. The Giants lost big pieces, obviously, but even them, I feel like they did all right by adding John Runyon, Malik Neighbors also, Brian Burns. They're at least doing something. There's some action there. With the Cowboys, it just seems like I'm looking at that meme that everybody sees, that I see on Instagram, on social media, with the guy just like poking at like something on the ground with a stick, saying like, is it alive yet? Or do something. That we're waiting for the Cowboys to finally make a move or show some action, but they're not doing it, and that can seem frustrating. I can imagine only with Mike McCarthy coming down to the wire, trying to succeed in his final season, but not getting anything, no response from the Dallas Cowboys, and it does seem unfair. It does seem just not an ideal situation for all aspects of it. Mike McCarthy, the Cowboys, and not only that, you could just sense that there are big changes coming after this season. Nothing is lining up as it should with a functional, well-executed team up until this point. And if no extensions get done, it'll be a huge distraction, like I mentioned, and it'll also just be a much bigger deal because this is the Dallas Cowboys we're talking about. Everything is blown out of proportion. All the cameras are always on them. It's going to get annoying, and I would probably guess by November, October, if they're around 500, which I probably would guess that they are, and they're coming down the wire trying to get some big wins to solidify themselves in the playoffs. If that doesn't go well and they perform badly towards the end of the season, that's when we're going to see some pretty blunt responses, and then after that, it's going to get to a point where I feel like nobody will really care to say how they're truly feeling, and then it just really just becomes a whole mess from that point on. I can already predict it, but again, hopefully it doesn't turn out as bad as I'm maybe making it seem, but I just don't like the way that this is all turning out for the Cowboys because they've been right there, and it almost just seems like they're overly confident that they're always going to be there, they're always going to be around the rim, they're always going to be successful, where they've not really shown the actions to show that consistency over and over again. They've just been stuck in the same place, and now they could have a chance to potentially take a massive step backwards by trying to find a new head coach, maybe a new quarterback, and trying to replace a lot of pieces on this team. So a massive season coming up for the Cowboys, a lot riding on the plate of Jerry Jones, Mike McCarthy, and just the entire Dallas team, like always, but I feel like this one has a lot more riding on it than usual. Let me know what you guys think about the Cowboys. What is the situation going to look like if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan? How are you feeling about your team heading into 2024? But speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, we're not going to go too far. Talking about Dallas, talking about some of these other teams, we're going to go to a quick break, and when we return, some more off-season grades, staying in the NFC East, and talking about all four teams and how they've done in the offseason up until this point, now starting to pick it up a little bit heading into training camp. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.
Look